Okay, there appears to be a lot of interest or some degree of interest about this Hassan Campbell, Kenneth Supreme McGriff lawsuit. Hassan Campbell showed some police knocking at his door. It's supposedly, well, that would be process servers, not police. Now, whether that's real or not, I don't know, but I was texting with Supreme's son, and he did ask me about that before I didn't know Hassan Campbell was talking about it. So I think there is some reality to maybe Supreme doing that or talking about doing it. And I'm not a lawyer, but maybe you can learn something here, because I'm pretty sure what I'm about to say what I'm going to tell you is true. Like I told them, but they can do whatever. I'm not here to obviously tell anyone what to do, but my understanding, and I don't give legal advice because I'm not a lawyer, the problem, so what is he suing? What is Supreme specifically suing Hassan Campbell? Or if he is, what is it for? It's for, Hassan went on one of his rants about Supreme having Kyle's mother shot while she was pregnant with him because she didn't want to accept money to get an abortion, which is pretty dark. Now, where does this come from? Now he just threw in another thing where he said, I don't know why Hassan said that Bimmy is the one who went and got her to drop the charges. This happened back in 1994. I don't know where he got that info. Maybe that's true or it's not. I'm not sure the source of that. I don't know if someone told him that personally. I don't know. That could be true. But here's what's interesting. Okay, first of all, let's just say it's all... Okay, so if it is true, you can't sue anybody for libel, obviously. So if he's suing him, that's implying it's not true. This is interesting. Here's the thing. Kenneth McGriff is serving life no parole for murder. Now, maybe he'll be pardoned or get out, But as of right now, so a person that's serving life in prison, maybe he could sue Hassan Campbell and technically win a libel case, but there'll be no damages because he has no reputation. You're already a convicted murderer. Now, maybe within the street culture, I have a good reputation, but in general culture, to any judge or jury, you already have as bad of a reputation as possible. You've been sentenced to life in prison. So even if he could win a case, there'll be no damages. And that's how American tort law works, based on British common law. I do something that harms you. Well, now we need to calculate the financial damages. Now, conversely, let's say it was Gerald Prince Miller instead of Supreme that someone was accusing of trying to have his child's mother killed and blah, blah, blah. Gerald Prince Miller could make the case, well, I'm out and free. I'm not sure how old he is. He's probably in his late 50s. I have 10 more years of working. And, okay, I did serve 32 years, but it was all for drug charges. And I'm out now. I had the life sentence overturned. There's no violence that I was convicted of. And by someone saying that I tried to have my own child's mother gunned down, that hurts me, and the damages are I can't get a job. Now, as a convicted felon at age 58, maybe the most a judge would say, well, at best you were going to make $1,200 a week, which is $60,000 a year, and you have 10 more years of working time. I'll give you $600,000 in damages. Maybe. I'm not sure the accuracy of all that, but that's a way for you to think about it. Libel law is two parts. Did you do it? Like, did you libel me? And what are the damages? Same thing even when people get hurt, like when people sue. There was a car accident. Your husband is killed in the car accident, and he was 31 years old, where they're going to look and say, okay, well, he was a high school graduate, and he had 34 more working years. Here's how much his life was worth. There's actuarial tables that already exist for that. Oh, he was 26, and he was a freshly minted PhD in economics. Oh, well, this guy, now you're going to get a lot more money. Or your Dole fruit company and your pesticide and your new guava plantation in whatever, Panama somewhere, the insecticide killed some people or made them sterile or something. What are the damages? Well, you're going to base the damages of death on people that were making 50 cents an hour. And then there may be some extra pain and suffering. But so human life is reduced to money. The damage to your life is money. Kenneth McGriff can't really be damaged. He's serving life in prison. He has no reputation. He can't earn money. That's what I think. I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm not a lawyer. It's interesting though to think about. Now, what's even more interesting, let's get to the heart of the matter. To quote Zip with the Drip, let's get to that. About like the incident itself, because that's pretty crazy, right? So I'm going to New York in a little while, and I'm going to be interviewing Kyle, and I'm supposed to interview Mr. Miller. Hopefully that'll happen. But I will ask Kyle about this. I'm not sure, and maybe they're not going to want to talk about it. I don't know, but there's a New York Daily News article from the Lorenzo brothers, Irv and Chris Gotti, Murder Inc., when that was on trial for basically colluding, conspiring with Supreme, which of course they were found not guilty. There was testimony in that case that in 1994, well, a guy named Dalu Banks testified that in 1994 he was one of the things he was in charge of for Supreme. Now, this would have been when Supreme had just gotten out. So Supreme went in 86 and did about 4 or 5 years. He got out in 91, and then he had some parole issues, and he was kind of in and out. 94 would have been right when he met the Lorenzo brothers. So this Dalu Banks says, my job was basically, if Supreme got any girls pregnant, to go and give them money for an abortion. But this one woman didn't want to take it. This would be Kyle's mother. So the prosecutor says, well, does anything happen? We made several attempts on her life. She was shot. Was Supreme present in any of these? No. Okay, well, here's the thing, though. Dalu Banks is in the new documentary, The Supreme Truth, which I talked about a couple posts ago. Gerald and Kyle found him, or have never stopped interacting with him, even though he testified. And this happened. Like, a lot of people get into these cases and are close friends, associates, relatives, and even though somebody, you don't know what really, people get on a stand, you don't know, is their testimony hurting or helping? Is there some secret thing behind the scenes like, well, I'm going to go to prison anyways, you should just testify against me to get less time? Or people lie when they testify to try to mess up the case. A lot of different stuff happens. But apparently this Dalu and Gerald and Supreme still, because Dalu gets interviewed, his face is blacked out, he gets interviewed by Gerald Miller in this new documentary. So again, go buy the documentary. It's really good. The Supreme Truth. It's on Vimeo. He says, he cut a deal to get out of trouble, and he testified. And he said he was making stuff up, and that. So there was Dalu Banks' testimony didn't really. I didn't pour over the trial transcript, but my impression is that it's certainly possible that Banks, Dalu, I think his last name is Banks, Dalu, I'm calling him Dalu, that they told Dalu, fuck it, like you and a bunch of other people just testify because it doesn't really matter, because the so-called hitman Manny Dog and this other guy John Reagan, these people that were in the Murder Inc. offices, John Reagan doing fraud, Manny Dog who claimed to have been the conduit between the hitmen and Kenneth Supreme, their testimony and some of the other evidence that Bill Courtney, the NYPD detective in charge, found and said it was this kind of way, that was gonna sink Supreme. Dalu was just kind of more, I think they're trying to use his testimony to make Supreme look a certain way in the Murder Inc. case. Because I don't know if he testified in Supreme's case, because the stuff he testified about, they were trying to give Supreme was facing murder charges. Dalu had no testimony on the murders, I think. So they may have never stopped being cool with Dalu, or having some, but he snitched, Al. I mean, hey, man, people, when you've been with somebody for years, or you're related, or you guys made millions, you know, but whatever went on behind the scenes, they got this guy to be in the documentary, and he said, I was making stuff up. Me and the other snitches, informants in the case, were supposed to be separated from each other, Manny Dog and all them, but we were together, and the feds would come talk to us about what we were going to say in the stand. Like, he's saying, you know, the feds really orchestrated the testimony so that it all worked. I mean, I know personally that local police departments, I was once with somebody, and they gave some police detectives a little brown paper bag full of drugs, which they would come and get from time to time. Like, they would force witnesses in like murder cases and stuff, they would lock them up. That was a thing Detroit police got in trouble for. They would lock up witnesses that were like crackheads, dope fiends that they knew weren't going to come to court or was just going to disappear. They would lock them up and they'd bring them dope. They'd go get coke and blow, crack and blows, and bring them to them in their hotel room, in their jail cell. There were people smoking crack and doing heroin on the 9th floor of 1300 Bobian. So, and if it happened in Detroit, I mean, Detroit it was particularly, and is particularly bad and out of control, but humans do the same. Whatever goes on in one place goes on everywhere else. It might be more extreme or frequent in one place than another, but so was Dalu's testimony about shooting Kyle's mother made up? Sounds like it could have been. And now, if that testimony was in the Gotti case, or the Murder Inc. thing, and they were exonerated, then Supreme can make the claim, well, then no, that's just what a guy said, and it wasn't even believed at the time because the case he testified in it was exonerated. I don't know what proof there is that the mother was shot or not. Again, I'll ask Kyle. They may not want to talk about it. That's pretty damn touchy. Though, if it didn't happen, I'm sure he'll say that. But we'll see. But very touchy subject, and I mean that would be very dark. And Hassan went on a rant about how, I hope you die in prison, and you're a bad person, and why would you keep talking to your dad when you're still in contact with the guy who supposedly clapped your mother? But Hassan is taking a newspaper article and describing it in the worst way for Supreme. I'm just trying to, which could be true. I'm not saying he's wrong, but he may have street information about what went on. I don't know, but if the source is the Daily News, like where I saw that, then the guy who said it, Dalu, is now in Supreme's documentary saying, you know, me and the feds colluded on my testimony, and I'm still cool enough with Gerald Miller and Supreme and the son to be in this documentary. I mean, would you do a documentary with the guy who shot your mother? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, you know, I will say, if you are part of one of these families, like the McGriff family or a mafia family or any, I mean, you know, when I was a little kid, a bunch of wild shit happened in my family. You kind of get numb. Things like, you'll tell people this relative did that to this other relative, and people are like, oh my God, but it's your family. Like, what are you going to do? I don't know how it sounds like Dalu, I think, was with them like in the early 80s. He may be probably like a family member to them. I don't know. I'm just conjecturing. But all this is very, very interesting. But boy, events from 30-some years, well, the shooting or non-shooting of Kyle's mother, that'd be 32 years ago, and then the whole Supreme Team stuff started over 40 years ago, like 83 or something. So they've definitely had a lasting impact, and it's still going on. But now Tasha K, I don't make stuff up. I don't like people making up lies about people. Like, that's pretty crazy. Tasha K Cardi B got a $6 million judgment she won against that Tasha K broad. And Tasha K went to Africa and all this crazy stuff to avoid it because she was making up stuff. And I think a lot of this celebrity gossip stuff is what people like watching on the internet. It's valuable if you can make up a good lie. Problem is, Cardi B, you may or may not like her, but she's not a criminal serving life in prison. She has a reputation. She makes a lot of money, besmirching her reputation. So she got $6 million in damages. Unfortunately for Supreme, he's not in the same situation as Cardi B. He has no reputation in effect he already has a very bad reputation. If society is deemed that you need to serve life, no parole in prison, you have no reputation. That's just my understanding of what I think the law is. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so we will see how it plays out. But I do think something like that was going on. I don't know if they actually filed or they just threatened to do it with the sign. We shall see. But very interesting as far as is Bimmy a snitch and all that. Again, like I said, another story. I mean, Bimmy has been out for 40 years. I mean, again, I'll just say this. I don't know anything about the intricacies of what the Supreme Team people did with each other, right? Other than a few things I've been told, but I'm not from New York. But knowing people very well that were in equivalent or bigger drug conspiracies in Detroit that I actually know personally and have become friends, or I already knew their family members and know all the ins and outs. People that spend, large groups of people that have spent decades and decades selling dope, being in prison, this and that, and all relate. The reality is there's gonna be, some of them will have told on other ones. Some of them will have done stuff other ones didn't like. Some, you tried to shoot me back in 91, but I forgive you. That comes with being a major narcotics trafficker, running a big street operation, and all prison and jail and death and telling. It comes with it. And just like with the cartel people, at some point, if you got a brain, like one guy told me, he asked me, I'm not going to say who it was, but he said, do you want me to call so-and-so? You can interview him. And I was like, didn't he like tell on you guys? And he was like, well, we were selling, $2 million worth of dope in dimes every week. Like, we were going to prison. I mean, he didn't put us in prison. Like, we were committing crimes. And then also this guy, I think one of them had a baby with the other one's sister, and they're older. It was a long time ago. And they made tens of millions of dollars or millions and millions of dollars together before it went whatever happened. So what's the balance, And then if you can continue to do there's people that have told on someone in the case and they end up doing the same crimes together again later, because at a certain level, there's only so many people in a city, even in a big city, even in New York or Detroit. There's only so many people that have access to this and can run through that. So you end up using your old networks and doing the same people as somebody that might have said something before, because there's always someone's always gonna have a story of why they so-called told. Well, there's I didn't mean to, and this, but then I lied, but I didn't say it the right ways, but really it wasn't telling. But just goes to show you how complicated and twisted it all gets. And then, again, Supremes, the reputation of Supreme is kind of tarnished by, at least, I don't really know how connected the Fat Cat they were, but the Fat Cat had one of his kids' mothers killed for sure. He had the parole officer killed, and then his flunky Pappy Mason, they had that cop killed. So everyone kind of thinks of them as all in the same pool. And that may be why the Dalu guy throughout the whole, just trying to make Supreme look bad, he shot his kid's mother, because it fed into the existing narrative, because they always bring up Fat Cat and all those murders, because that looks Fat Cat is so unlikable. You had your kid's mother killed for stealing money and spending on another guy. You had your parole officer bumped off, and then this rookie cop ends up dead, whether you ordered it or not, but some knucklehead under you had it done. Very unlikable kind of guy. And if you can paint Supreme with this same brush, makes them look bad, which is the federal prosecutors, that's a tactic they're going to use. So that's my thoughts on what's going on with the Supreme and the sign and the lawsuit and all that stuff. But so based on a true story, but what really is the truth, go watch the Supreme Truth on Vimeo. Al Prophet, American Dope.